spirituality is just like a natural, normal function of what we do. And it's not this sort of, alt world that it used to be.
Welcome to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, where world-changing spiritual entrepreneurs come to deeply awaken the power within to bring forth their greatest purpose, while enjoying being in tune with all life and real wealth in all aspects of their lives. I'm your host, Daniel John Hanneman. And welcome everybody to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast Show. We have an amazing guest today. Oh, she is so brilliant. You know, she's got one of those brilliant minds, brilliant person. And she is going to help you really to understand why it's so important, the words you use, baby. Okay. All right. It means so much to our manifestation. It means so much to content creation. It means so much in so many ways. And it's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, if you want to learn how to really manifest more in your business through words and much more, we're going to get into it today. So Mary, I'm so grateful you're here today.
Thanks, Daniel. I'm so glad we got put in touch together earlier this year and we hit it off. And we were like, we need to hop on the mic and put this conversation public.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like we wanted to go in depth because we're both of these like in-depth type of people, and it's like, yeah, let's do a podcast, let's go. So here we are, guys. It's going to be a great conversation. Let me share more with you about Mary before we dive in. Mary Williams is the CEO and founder of Sensible Woo, home of the School of Moxie Podcast. A librarian by trade who established herself in the entertainment industry as the digital archivist, I'm sorry, for probably not the only person that did that, archivist for major animation production studio. She has been consultant for not only entertainment companies, but also marketing agencies, tech startups, and nonprofit fundraising organizations. Mary has been a Tarot and Akashic Records intuitive coach for about 20 years. She has grown from doing readings over the phone on nights and weekends to a thriving business, right? Like many of you are looking for thriving businesses where intuitive business advising is the main offering. The motto at Sensible Woo is that you are always your best system, which means embracing the magic of your intuitive size is just as important as the data of your business that your business produces. Mary has been an online creator since 2010. So she's been around for a while doing this. She does incredible stuff, which makes her a tough old bird in the online entrepreneurship community. And you should definitely ask about all that crazy shit. Yeah. She's been seeing people do online over the years. It is pretty interesting. You can travel with Mary as she records guests in studios through her weekly emails, YouTube, Instagram, Threads, you name it, probably. No, I don't know, but she's on all those platforms, and I just love it. I just love it. So I love having you on the show, Mary. Um, we've got to do, it's so funny. I have two guests today. I had another guest that recorded today. He is about the idea of the spiritual side and integrating with business and stuff. And then we have this, it's like, I'm like, wow, a double dose today. Because I always see like the guy, when I have a guest, I always see like that guest again. It's all mirrors, right, for everybody. And it's like I'm saying, oh, I guess I need to double down on this because sometimes, Mary, I think, God, I could be such a woo master. I could do that. I've been there. I have done that. Being so like woo, I,
Yeah.
I could channel. I can just weave myself into these walls. I'll show you what's possible, and I can do all these things. Be the meditation teacher. I've done all that. Do it all. Then but wait a minute, I could be a business strategist. I could tune into your business. I can set the mindset. I can amp up your energy. I can mellow it out. I can do this. I can do that. Or I could just straight up just tell you the way it is. Just by my accountability. Let's go. Metrics, data. What do the numbers say? I don't care. What do the numbers say? I don't care what your feelings are. What do the numbers say? I could go there too. Or I could say, no, how do you feel? We need to know how you feel. And I do all of that.
Yeah.
So like that's what I love about, sensible woo, like that whole thing is like I mean, I feel like what I'm saying is like with its two interviews I think it's like guys, we need to bring all of ourselves together,
Yeah.
right? It is. We have to bring all of ourselves into the business. And so yeah, I'm curious to hear about your journey with that. Like because you're
Yeah.
really intuitive and then you're really strong with data and being organized in your mind and all that stuff that I talked about. So tell us about your
Yeah.
journey to getting to where you've been doing what you do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a data nerd. I think data tells the story.
That's
And I love what you said about how we have to bring all of ourselves, because as a spiritual practitioner for a long time, I've hung out with other spiritual folks too. And I think sometimes we can fall down a slippery path of feeling like you have to be perfect in some way before people will accept you, or they can only see one part of you because no, over there is like the messy closet of my life. And it's like, no, like you're human. And you and I bonded over like you're a human in a human body in a 3D world. Like I love 5D talk, but like you're in a 3D world.
right.
And I'm a systems coach and I've been a librarian. I have a master's degree in everything. And, I'm used to dealing with a lot of data and a lot of information. And there are systems of classification, there's ways of organizing our world. And I feel like that really translates not just to business, which we already know, like we know about business metrics, we know about how to talk about things strategically, but also when it comes to our spiritual side, like there are systems to spirituality too. And, it can't just be all burning sage and, putting crystals in your bra. And like, I mean, there's
I've never
so
heard
much
anybody put it
more.
that way. Crystals in the bra. That's a new fun one.
So I quickly learned that, there was sort of this niche community in the spiritual world that I fit in really well. And there were a lot of people who on the outside don't necessarily present like they're super, super spiritual, but they operate that way. And they have businesses. Like I've served a lot of naturopathic doctors, but also educators and people who do things like, curriculum development, or they have online courses that are totally not related to spiritual things, but they operate in that way. And, that's, I think, really the way that we're all moving into is like spirituality is just like a natural, normal function of what we do. And it's not this sort of, you know, alt world that it used to be. I mean, probably dating myself a little bit here, but for a long time, if you were not into traditional organized religion and you were just more, diversely spiritual, you were not mainstream, but that's not the case anymore. And so I think we really need to treat ourselves as mainstream, especially as business owners, because if you're not mainstream as a business owner, you're going to end up leaving a lot of money on the table because you'll exempt yourself from business systems that you really need to partake in, because
Mm.
that's how you make money. It's how you grow. And,
Mm.
money is energy, but it's
Well,
also a source of
yeah.
power. And that's how we make a difference in the world.
Do you want to meditate and make money? Let it be simple. Let it be easy. Let it be fun. Go to yoursacredpurpose.com and get your free meditate, make money meditation today.
Yeah, I
That's
wanted
kind
to
of how I feel
pause
about it.
on that one. Yeah, we could go, we're good talkers. Both of us could go on long riffs for sure. Both of us, not that you did. I'm just saying I could see it, I could see myself going on and on too because I do it. But I want to pause on that one because that's a good one to pause on is that, because what does that mean? Because what does mainstream mean? Because mainstream to me,
Yeah.
when I hear you say it the way you described it, is well, even things like Facebook or Instagram could be considered mainstream. Well, that's so
Mhm.
mainstream. I want to do it differently.
Mhm.
I don't want to email everybody. Email's like the dinosaurs. I don't want to do email and whatever. Like so many things. Podcasts are mainstream. I mean, it's everything's main. What isn't
Yeah.
mainstream? Like you'd
Yeah.
have to. Okay,
Yeah.
everything,
Right.
almost everything is mainstream nowadays. There's no
Mhm.
some new emerging things, right? But always, but so much of it is mainstream. So I wanted to pause on that because that was important. It's something really important with what you're saying there. So what do you mean by like we can't just be like I'm not going to be mainstream? What do you mean by that? So let's dig into that one.
Well, I like that you're pointing out like everything's becoming mainstream. Like the systems are flattening, the hierarchy is flattening. So things that, I mean, I first got onto Facebook when I was in college. I think it was still being run out of Mark Zuckerberg's dorm room. It's like my elder millennial claim to fame is like I had like original access to like original the Facebook. And I watched that platform grow up, and it was definitely a fringe thing for a long time. I mean, back then MySpace was big, and even MySpace was pretty fringe. And now it's sort of like, well, you've got to sort of pick a platform or two and focus on them because you can't be on everything. And even though I have like kind of a list there, I'm not on everything. And so everything sort of de facto becomes mainstream, which I think is a really good point that you're making, because as spiritual practitioners who engage in business, we have to find peacefulness somewhere in order to start making an impact. You would ask for like topics for me to bring, and I was like, use your words, baby, is like the things that I just coming back to again and again with clients over the most recent years, because I channel regularly. And so I'm accustomed to finding the words every week for them. And when people are lost for words or they haven't verbalized something yet, it can be really hard to show up in a quote unquote mainstream place and to participate freely and feel safe and feel like you can be heard. But if you're really struggling to figure out, but what is it that I actually want to say, that can really hold you back from not just, your business practice, but your spiritual practice too. And that can start bringing in like all of those fraudy feelings, the imposter syndrome, and you start second guessing yourself. And then you start checking out of your business systems and you're like, well, I guess the metrics don't matter because I don't participate in mainstream, so I don't need to pay attention to those. And it just becomes this like slippery slope of compounding, symptoms that are really just rooted back to being authentic in yourself and being comfortable with that.
Yeah, I think the metrics really start to suck when your business isn't doing well, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too 3D. I ain't looking at that because you're not comfortable with the results. So I think if you had a lot of, most people anyway, I mean, not everybody, but most people, if they had a lot more money coming into the business that was doing well, they would, and even, with all the metrics, I understand it's not just money, but all
Yeah.
the different metrics. If they were doing well, you don't have a problem
Mhm.
looking at them as much, right? Or not at all,
Yeah.
maybe. And so there are some people I think are allergic to that stuff, even no matter how successful they are. But for
Mhm.
most people, they'd be a lot more comfortable or even enjoy it. So, because I've noticed that if the business is down, I'm like, well, what's the point? It ain't working anyway right now. So just F the metrics,
Yeah, it's so tempting to do that. And we're recording right at the end of 2024. And this year was honestly, for most people, I know it's not everybody, but for most people, at least that I had contact with, myself included, it was kind of a weird year for business. And 2023 was equally like a sliding down kind of a weird year for business. And just the
Mhm.
market's going through shifts and changes. And it can be hard to maintain that, motivation. But I think that's where like the sensible and the woo come together. It's like those two things play in tandem together every day. And when you're able to find your own self as a system to keep yourself motivated, to keep yourself inspired, to be inspired by others, when the chips are down and you are still enthusiastic about it and you're still attempting and trying and experimenting, like those are really good signs and symptoms. And to be able to keep doing that during rough times means that when the times are really great, then it'll be even easier. And I think actually like the last year or so has given us all a chance to really examine like how much do I really really love this, like how authentic am I really being to my spiritual beliefs and my spiritual practice, and how am I showing up authentically in that way with my audience? Am I showing up at all? Am I trying to bypass something? I think it invites us to do that. And I do feel like walking into 2025, like it's going to be a very foundational year. I've been channeling readings for that already for the year. And so I think it's going to be kind of like a quiet year of building and rebuilding. But if you do the work and you're willing to do the work, the payoff is really huge. It's not glamorous though. And I think sometimes we look for like a little too much glamour in the business side and a little too much glamour in the spiritual side. And it's like the actual glamour comes from those quiet moments that nobody's paying attention and watching you do the actual work. So it's
Right.
not performative, you know, it's like actually actually having the reckoning with yourself about like, I'm still doing it. I'm still sending my emails. Here's what the open rates look like. Here's what the click rates look like. Here's what kind of response I'm getting back. What kind of decisions am I going to make based on that? Instead
Yes.
of just sort of saying, well, let me run another manifestation spell because that's going to help me more than actually doing the work. And, you know, I love both, but it's like, you've got to do both. You
Right.
can't just substitute one for the other and then expect miracles to happen, because we live in a 3D world. And like, unfortunately, it's the way it works.
Yeah, because that was what we were really connecting on when we talked is, you know, I had a program, you know, a couple of years ago or whatever it was now. I was like something about, I don't even remember the title that, you know, we run so many courses and programs over so many years anyway. And it's like, can't even remember the names of it. It was around getting more into the 5D and get 3D results kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, unfortunately, some people took it as, what we still have to do with the deal with the 3D, even though I told them
Right.
going into it, but
Mm-hmm.
they were paying attention to what they wanted to hear, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I told them very squarely up front, they're still like, but I thought this is 5D. I don't want to do 3D. I thought we would just flow with the angels and everything works. And I'm so sorry, guys. I mean, part of me would love for it to be that way. And it does, if you want a certain type of life, it can work. I mean, you could
Yeah.
just kind of have things kind of pop up here and there. And,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but 99.9% of us are going to be unsatisfied with those results. You know, you're going to be like, man, there's got to be more. Because there is, you know, there's more
Yeah.
you can do. Sometimes the biggest spell you can cast is to go out and, you know, talk to people and get, you know, invite them to become clients. That's
Mm-hmm.
one of the bigger spells you could do, but it's more uncomfortable. It's a lot more uncomfortable. It's 100 times more uncomfortable for some of you, or even 1,000 times more uncomfortable. But that's where the growth is. I think the people that are
Yeah.
going to thrive, did thrive already in 2023 and 2024 and beyond, are the people that are willing to break new ground, right? And people are willing to continue to evolve, you know, their perspectives and their ideas. Because I know whenever I've run into stagnation, it's because in life or business, it's always when I've put I'm like, no, I won't evolve there. Basically, it was what it come down to. No, I am where I am, and that's where I'm staying. Okay, you get the same results. Okay,
Right.
so you
Right.
got to
Right.
keep evolving, right? I mean, that's what I've
Yeah.
seen.
Yeah. I also feel like we're all being asked to redirect ourselves in different ways. So, you know, I, like you, have had the mastermind programs and the coaching programs, and I found myself being redirected in the last couple of years, and I experimented. I tried a couple things here and there. I retired my big, like, year-long mastermind program, and I was like, well, let me do Voxer coaching for the last year. And I did. And then I just found myself continually being redirected and going back to my media roots and helping people produce content. And, you know, as soon as I like let go of official sort of standard coaching packages, like, I'm still a coach. People are still getting coaching from me. It's just not in that sort of old capacity. You know, plenty of other people are still hanging on to those types of offers, and it works for them, but it's not working for me. I'm being redirected. Like, I can smell it in the air. I can taste it. Like, it's in front of me. It's here. And to deny that just adds in more friction. It makes it harder to have the growth that you're talking about. And as soon as I let that go, like, the doors to the new things just burst wide open. I was telling you before we hit record, like, you and I had a chat, and then Q4 hit, and I'm like, it's like a tsunami of business coming. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, where is this all coming from? And it's very exciting, but you know, the manifestation of that's starting to really come in right now is the result of all that deep inner work, the reprogramming. Yes, there's ritual in there too, but like, every time I do any spell work for myself or meditation practice, I'm really looking for, where am I spotting where my limiting belief is holding me back from the full manifestation? That spell shows me that.
Right.
Where is, you know, this spell work showing me that I need a little bit more rest right now? I'm honestly not ready. You know, the universe gives you what you can handle. I'm not ready yet. and to come to terms with like, okay, I need a little bit more self-care right now. And to let yourself do that work. That it's
Mhm.
nobody's giving you trophies or medals for it, but we always see the payoff later from people and we're like, oh, how'd you get that, you know? And I think there's a few of us who are able to articulate that, so we have the words and we find them. And I think the more that we're able to tell people those words, that we help more and more people, because to just say, look at the prize I got, it's not enough. You know, we need to see the whole journey. And
Yeah.
people who appear to just sort of be living on 5D and they're just manifesting everything, either they come from extraordinary privilege and they live on a trust fund that none of us know about, or they've done this work and they just have never articulated it. They actually did not find
Right.
their words and they did not tell you. They might not even be able to at this point. But you know, like if you have your business brain on, sometimes you can reverse engineer it enough. I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things to do. I'll like try to like dig through people's past materials and see if I can reverse engineer, like, where did they come from? When did they pop? How did it happen? And sometimes you can see it in their marketing materials if they have enough of it, but not always, And it can make it confusing if you
Mhm.
are feeling kind of lost and you're like, I have this goal and I really want it. It's like, you're allowed to want what you want, but there's also a
Yeah.
lot of work that goes with wanting what you want.
I remember doing a course where they were going through all the D's. This one particular one just went 12D. They didn't go, yeah, I'm sure there's people that have billion D or whatever, all the
Yeah.
way, all these levels, right? There always another level. So all the way from 1D all the way up to 12D. And I cannot remember the life of me all these different levels whatsoever. I just only remember mostly what they said about 3, 4, and 5D. The
Yeah.
rest, maybe because I'm not advanced enough, but I don't know.
I think it's like the entrepreneur thing. First, it was 6-figure entrepreneurs and then 7-figure entrepreneurs. And lately I saw 11-figure and I was like, you guys just cut it out. Like, just stop it. Like,
You want to be an 11-figure entrepreneur, not a loser like all those 10-figure people. Like it just goes more and more. Yeah, sometimes it is just ego and BS the way it's positioned, I guess. But yeah, and then but yeah, I mean it's interesting what people get into. But I think most people, even if they say they're successful, fully at 5D and they're living in that and they got the life and even with the money or whatever in their business, I bet if we pull the curtain back, just like a Wizard of Oz, we're going to see somebody sitting there
yeah.
looking at their numbers, looking at
Yep.
their business plan, and they're
Yep.
out there on stage saying, I'm all 5D, baby, none of that 3D. But
Mm-hmm.
they remove themselves enough of the encumbrance of the belief systems and the concepts and the BS within the 3D that yes, they're in their mind,
Yeah.
they're living 5D, but it
Yeah.
confuses people because people have all different kinds of ideas of what it means to be living in 5D. Well, then we're like floating in the air and we're just singing together with the divine harmonics and the galactic, and we're barely even on the ground anymore. And like, I mean, it's all over the place what people might think with that concept. So
It is.
that's why getting more precise, like it's this episode's talking about words, right? So that's why
Yeah.
getting more, not, getting more precise with the words is really important because every word is a spell, right? We've
It
all
is
learned that one,
spelling.
right? And it's
Yeah,
spelling, right? They call it spelling for a reason. Right?
it's for a reason. And yeah, I feel like because we want to help other humans, you have to participate as a human. And humans, like, what makes us special is we have language and we can communicate with each other. And language can be spoken, like you and I are recording, we're talking to each other right now. It can also be written, and it can also be through physical movement like dance or sports. That's a language. There's so many, music is a language. Like, there's so many different ways of having language. And you have to figure out how you're going to participate with other people in that language. And I think if you check out so far away from other humans, it's like, are you helping people the way you really want to at that point? Because in business, we talk on like a business sense about like, meet your customers where they're at. And it's like, so are you meeting them where they're at? Because if you're up floating around in the clouds, none of your people have wings or airplanes, they can't fly. How are you meeting them where they're at? Are you going to land yourself at any point and meet them on the ground? Are you willing to do that? Because at that point now we're talking about an ego journey, not necessarily a spiritual journey.
Right. That's a good
And
point.
you see that happen in the business side, you see it happen in the spiritual side, and they see that tug, that push and the pull between my spiritual entrepreneurs. I know you do too. And it's part of our journey. You know, we're seeking something that we're not entirely sure what all of this is. And, you know, we get intuitive hits on things. We find the synchronicities and share information, and, you know, and we find it together, but that's community. So in order to have that, you've got to get on the ground and commune with your community. Otherwise, you know, like, I don't know where you're getting all your information from. I totally believe that you are getting information from somewhere, somehow. But like, can you relate it back? Like, can we meet somewhere in the middle and
Right. Well, isn't that,
actually have an exchange?
yeah, I mean, isn't that too where once we come to the reality of like, yeah, I guess because I feel, a lot of my podcasts are geared towards, well, all different people that are spiritual entrepreneurs, healers, and coaches, but particularly those that are not yet getting that traction in their business quite
Yeah.
yet. They haven't fully integrated the spiritual with the 3D or whatever, however, 5D, 3D or whatever.
Right.
They haven't got that integration going yet, and they're struggling. And usually they're not struggling not because they're trying to drive it all forward harder. There are some audience members listening that are that way, but they're
Mhm.
just getting into the spiritual side, but much more so the other way. And so when we're looking at that here on the show, it's like, okay, all right, damn it, I'm going to have to deal with this 3D stuff, metrics and data and all this stuff. Okay, I'm going to get over it. And I'm going to put my big girl pants on, as I say, or whatever, big
Yeah.
boy pants, either way. But I'm going to go ahead and do it. I'm going to do that. I hate it, but I'm going to do it. And that's fine. If you feel like you hate it, that's fine. You'll get past it. Trust me, you will.
Mhm.
You'll come to love what you hated in most cases. So,
Yeah.
but if you just embrace it and you start going down this path, you'll start to see like, people that track things and look at the metrics and everything, on average will always have more success because they care and they're looking and then they're responding to it because they're watching it. They're not just only an ego trip looking at the metrics, they're digging into it, right? Is
Yeah.
ideal. And then from there, then you have to I'm trying to get to to the subject with the words more, but like ultimately it's like, yeah, we're gonna need to look at, like, if it's metrics on social media or open rates or whatever on email,
Yeah.
like we're gonna start looking at titles, we're gonna start looking at the words we're using, and that's that metric, right? In that
Yeah.
aspect. So
Yeah.
so that's why, it's so important, you know, to realize these words. You would think like, well, that's 3D. I mean, I can't think of how that's. I mean, forget about it. Like, we utilize words to open up universes.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible, if you believe in any of that stuff, I mean,
Right.
it's like again and again, it's just like it was spoken and it was done. I mean, again and again.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we have, how we cast these spells and how we're utilize them inside ourselves and in our messaging, so it makes the world a difference of how it's going to go. And it's not just the word itself, but how we are being with our frequency with the words as well. And there's so many things that go into it.
There are so many things. Yeah. I mean, we're talking about words, but it's really communication and getting clear and being able to communicate with yourself first, then with your community, and then with the universe, you know. And if you're looking at your data, you know, that is a form of communication. Like the entity of business is communicating with you. It is giving you words in quotes, you know. Maybe they look like numbers, but they're words. And it's trying to tell you something. And I think that we get so many really great pieces of information, signs, symbols, truly angelic delivered messages through our business information. And I think sometimes, like, because when it gets hard and you're tired, you're like, I wish it was like, you know, I'm just like receiving like the words from, you know, heaven, and they're just going to tell me exactly what to do. And it's like, well, they are totally telling you, and they're giving you like the most valuable pieces of information in these really mundane places. And I think like it's so important to remember that if you are feeling so much friction where you're like, I don't like it. Hate's a really strong word, but it's like, I
Mhm.
hate it. I just don't like it. Like, I just don't want to do it. Like, you
Yeah.
should be paying attention to that. Are you trying to force yourself down a path? And the universe has been like, this like little side path over here is more your thing. And because it doesn't maybe at the outset look as glamorous, or it doesn't seem as sexy as you thought you wanted, it's like that's when you have the internal spiritual development of like, okay, is my ego driving the car right now? Or am I like really looking at what I'm being asked to do? Maybe I'm supposed to be carving a whole new thing, whole new path. And what I see other people doing, like maybe that's not the way that I go. And there's so many different ways to do such cool creative things that give you a good living, you make good money, that allow you to have big impact and reach lots of people, reach the right people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be because somebody fed you a formula, but like if you're looking for a formula, then you kind of have to ask yourself, like, am I trying to create myself like a franchise? Like I buy, a burger chain franchise and they like map it out for you and you run the place. That's it. You're done.
Mhm.
Or, am I creating something else, and it's going to require me to be a little riskier, be a little more trusting. It's going to take more time. The road's going to be a little more twisty. I'm not going to be able to see around every bend every time I make a turn. And that requires a different kind of faith than, just sort of a standard cut and dry, like copy this formula, voila, you have business.
Right.
Like
Right,
it's
right. Well, that's how
different.
people market to you, some
Yes.
people. And voila, so that's what you would hope, right?
Yeah.
That's why people buy the course, they get in the program, they go to the event, I'm going to get the formula. But just think about it, guys. How many times have you invested in that and seen like where it's worked for you? Number one, you probably didn't implement what they showed you, right? Or you didn't do much
See
of
that?
it. Never got off the ground. Number two, if you did all of it, it probably still didn't work because you're just being mechanical about it and just hoping, well, I just do stuff and it'll work, right? And then three, like on the off chance it might have worked, like did it last even, like or did it give you a blip? Like, because a lot of times testimonials too, they're the blip. And they're like, yeah,
Mhm.
for 6 months or a year it worked. Then after that, it wasn't working so well anymore, right?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of hype out there, with that stuff, and you have to forge. You do need to forge. We talked about this on this other show I was mentioning. You have to forge your own authentic path. I mean,
Yeah.
what's your authentic path to success? And that's what's so vital and important is to discover what that is, and that has a lot to do with your wiring. Like I have conversations I just saw, I've got they're silent notifications, I can't turn them all off, but I just had to come on in right this second. I know like
Yeah.
someone's reacting to basically an enrollment conversation I'm having with them,
Yeah.
the current client, and I'll just say, and I just got another reaction. And honestly, it's like the way this negotiation could go with this person, like it could go all the way to I'm no longer working with this person, or it could go to like a whole nother level that we're taking everything to, or it
Yep.
could go to all these different places.
Yeah.
So how I use my words, how I position myself energetically, how I'm being in this relationship with a human sentient spiritual
Yeah.
being is critical,
It's
how
critical.
it's going to go. Yeah.
Well, I mean, also, like, did you notice like you're listening? Like, it's
Yeah.
not just about one of us, saying and saying and speaking and speaking and speaking. It's also about
Right. Right.
listening. Like that person is telling you things. They may be doing it completely imperfectly, where you have to ask them more questions, or you have to kind of dig for a little more information, but they are doing the best they can, telling you what they
Mm.
want, what their boundaries are, what their limits are, where they want to go, what they don't want to do. And they're telling you. And I think sometimes we look for like the perfect statement from people. And it's like, no, you're actually going to have to do a little work as a listener to try to get that. And anytime we see that somebody has their messaging like so honed in on their business, and it's like, I guarantee you that behind the scenes, they feel like it's still not hitting right. It's still not perfect, that they have a long way to go. And it should feel like it's always constantly a work in progress. Like, it's not like, oh, I mastered my statement of who I serve and what I, like,
Right.
like what I offer, who I serve. And I'm
No,
just like
I
one
did
and
though,
done.
Mary. I really did perfect. I'm
Yeah.
just joking. Yeah, it's like a work in progress
It's,
always, is it?
yeah,
I mean, it's like,
always. Cause I'll hear from people and they're like, oh, I'm so bad at explaining. I say this constantly too, where I'm like, I can never get it out in like a smooth sentence. And I'm like, well, you better all sit down and like get a cup of tea. Cause I'm just going to talk for a minute, and that's okay. It's okay.
people like you,
And
they'll be enrolled. They'll be like, yeah, that's me.
right. And I have found that the people who are interested in finding themselves through language, through communication, they're really attracted to that style. They're really
Yeah.
attracted to somebody who clearly will have patience for them going through the same thing. Like, I'm not trying to be perfect in front of someone else. It's not possible. And anybody who seems a little too polished and perfect, I'm always a little wary. I'm like, what's really going on?
Yeah. There's something amiss, because I know we ain't perfect, right? A good point. I mean, I have talked to many people, on this show, hundreds of episodes on this show alone. I've had other shows, and I've had people, they're famous, so to speak, out there, and sometimes I get to know them. You get to have conversations offline, with them. Even sometimes I've done my energy scanning with them, or a little coaching for them, or whatever. And I'll just say, some of the big bright light names, you would never imagine they're that way based on their presentation. You'd be like, oh my
Yeah.
God, they're dealing with those kind of things. That person? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, you would have no clue. You would never
Yeah.
know. So that's where this age of people have been talking about it for a long time, but it's true. We're in an age where authenticity is getting more and more, to be something that's deeply desired by everyone. It's
Yeah.
getting very mainstream. Like, they don't
Very
want
mainstream.
to. I've
Yeah.
laughed for years that, we actually had, and to this day, we still have courses on authenticity. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is how far we've slid. We have to have a course to learn how to be who we just are.
Well, it's like, what is it really? To
It is.
show up and be yourself, to be
Mhm,
consistently yourself, I think too, in multiple places,
mhm.
to not be one person over here and then a completely different person over there. That
Sure.
would feel horrible, I would imagine, as an individual. I personally would feel so like, who am I? Like, what am I doing? But there are people who have maybe inherited that behavior pattern. That's what they grew up with, and it's part of their generational karmic work that they're doing. It could be that, it's just part of their human, life this time around. But yeah, I think people really, I think ultimately, like, our customers on the business side, like, they want to know that you are who you say you are, that you do what you say you do, that it's, even if you're totally imperfect, which all of us are, that you're not going to implode and fall apart in front of them and not be able to serve them because you yourself are also imperfect. Like, I really think that's it. Like, can you hold yourself together and still show up and lead where you're trying to lead, and follow where you need to follow, and not try to conflate the two things, um and like, be an active participant in the world. Like, I think there's a lot of people who maybe feel, I don't, well, maybe this is carryover from my own corporate career, but I saw so many people, everyone's trying to like be on top, and at least in our Western society, like, that kind of culture is still pretty pervasive. You see it in entrepreneurship too, where it's the whole 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure, and it's like, what are you paying for? Like, what are you buying out
Right,
there in
right.
the world?
Got
How much
100
time?
figures, but I got nothing left.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, like, am I actively participating? Am
Mhm.
I being a good human with other humans? Because the
Right.
humans who want you, they want a good human. And that
Mhm.
they don't care if you've got the 9-figure checking account. I think more and more people are like, okay, if you're going to brag about it, show me your balance sheet. Where are you donating? What are you doing with that? Like they want to see, do you walk your talk? Like how good a person are you? Or are you just hoarding, which is a whole other energetic bucket of stuff that we could get into on a whole other episode. But like, what are you doing? And so the words you use matter. And, to continue trying to one up just to like seem like you have more authority somehow. I don't think it gives you more authority. I don't think it actually helps people attract to you more. If anything, I believe it's going to start repelling more. And you've kind of seen it happen already.
It's an interesting, let's take a moment. That's one of those, but hit the pause so we can deepen into it. I don't want to let that one get by. Because literally everybody, I want to say everybody's been around long enough, has been taught it's all about establishing authority in the marketplace. You are the authority.
Yeah.
And once you become the authority, then people will buy like everything like hotcakes. Like hotcakes. Someone is so bad they just won't be able to control themselves because you're the authority. And you're an authority in your specialized niche. Get rich. And by
on and on.
A sermon. And can I get a hallelujah, please? And everything right there is, you're right. There is no one size that fits all. But I would say that does work in certain level. For sure, it works,
Yeah.
But I think what you're saying, and then to let me know if I'm on track at all or not. But I think what you're saying is like people are not looking for that. I mean, when people look at again, people use Joe Rogan a lot, right? They look at Joe Rogan, they're not thinking, oh, he's an authority, like as much as they're like, he's got talents and abilities, whatever. But he's kind of a real dude, like he's just a real dude. Like I think that's the first thing people think about someone like him. So maybe he's an authority in that way. So I guess see the authority experts would say it's still about authority.
Yeah, like I'm not a huge fan of Joe Rogan, but the one credit I will give Joe Rogan is the consistency in which he has shown up and communicated to his audience. And that is his authority. So, I think sometimes we think that the authority has to be that you have a million degrees and certifications and you've got to lead everything with like all the brand names and all the things. And it's like, no, your ability to show up and communicate with your community is the authority. So, you look at his body of work and you see X number of podcasts. He's been a host on TV. He's been a guest in other places. He's on YouTube. He does all the things, right? And you're like, you kind of can't deny it. He's an authority, and whether you like him or not, he has authority in the podcasting space. And for the podcasters who get so incensed and they're like, oh, and I'm like, well, then become the authority. Start producing regularly. And then they're like, oh, I don't know what I'm going to say. I'm like, okay, let's go back to finding your words. Like you've got to do it. And it gets into the systems, all the systems coaching that I did for years and years. It's like, you got to develop your systems. You guarantee it that Joe Rogan's got systems when it comes to producing and publishing his podcast. Yes, he has a team. But guess what? They also have standard operating procedures. They wouldn't be able to do what they do without it. And, that's a very unglamorous look at business and media and content production. But that's the fact of the matter. And, at the end of the day, he is outworking you. At the end of the day, he is out producing you. He is out consistencying you, and so if you want to have an impact at the level that he's at, you've got to figure out how to start stacking your building blocks brick by brick and get up to that level of consistency. And then you have your personal reckoning and your spiritual journey. And it's like, is this for me? Do I want to do that? And and there are some people who do and some people who don't. It is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would have the audience the size of Joe Rogan. They would, and Joe Rogan would be like, I don't know, why are we talking about this guy right now? But there's a reason why we talk about it, because the body of work speaks for itself. And, and he's not the only one. He got unseated recently by Jason Kelsey's wife for #1 podcast.
I saw that. Yeah, it's happened before, I think I read, but it's one of those blips in the Matrix. It's like, what happened in the Matrix? All of a sudden, someone blipped up.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I think but that's a form of the universe communicating with all of us. And it's like, what's going on there? Something's happening there. It is the rise of feminine energy balancing out the masculine. When you have that high, energy, Joe Rogan, you're going to need something to kind of like come in and balance it. You've got this compounding story behind her where her husband is the brother of Taylor Swift's boyfriend. You got the whole football thing that's been going on. You got the Taylor Swift tours era going on. And like, I mean, there's like a chain of real
Goes
world.
back to Taylor. Everything comes back to Taylor.
Right, everything comes back to Taylor Swift. But you've got this real world chain of signs and symptoms and communication that has been given to you. And it's like, do you listen? And so, when we check out of being a human participating in community with humanity, and you're like, I'm not going to pay attention to pop culture. I'm better than that. I'm not going to pay attention to the news. That it's draining my energy. You end up disavowing all of the communication that's coming to you. And then you're wondering, why does Joe Rogan still have the top podcast? Well, boo, I got news for you. The information's already been given to you, and you have a decision at that point. Like, how do you want to participate in the dialogue and communicate? Or do you want to do it differently? Do you want to carve a whole new path with a whole bunch of other people and give a rallying cry? And it's not going to be on podcasts. You can do that too, but you have to make a decision at some point, and you've got to focus. And that just comes down to those really practical things like your systems and finding your words and then consistently doing it and not checking out, which is really tempting to do when you're empathic and you feel a lot of energy and you're like, but I'm tired. And I'm like, I know I'm tired too. But then you really start to think about, like, do I really love what I'm doing? Do I really love, what I'm trying to, make a difference on? Is this the right avenue path? Do I need to try a different type of content channel, or do I not try a different type of business? Or maybe I go back and get a job job. I'm seeing this with a lot of people, and they're like, you know what? Actually, I can't make a difference doing a business. I'm going to get a job job. I'm going to start up a side hustle where I can exercise my voice more freely without the stress of I can't pay my bills every month because I'm not making enough money. And like actually support yourself as a human. And I think that we're going to go through another year of that. And it's not a bad thing to become healthy and happy. Is not a bad thing. If the picture looks different in the end, that's also not a bad thing.
Right. Right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, I think you have to decide and make a declaration, and that comes back to words too. I mean, I when I say I'm going, 100,000 people are taking an energy scan training in 10 years or whatever, I'm using my words. Now, whether or not it happens to me isn't as important of the
Right.
direction I'm focused. That's what matters the most to me.
Yeah.
In other metrics I have, this comes down to metrics like I cast a spell.
Mm-hmm.
And anywhere along the way, I gotta be like, well, I'm so far from that yet. How could it ever happen? And based on the past and based on what I think the president is, I guess I don't know. And who am I? And or whatever. I could be like that. But instead of
Yeah.
like, well, if I just say that's what I'm doing because I feel it's important enough that it should happen. In fact, if anything, it should be a higher number with the variations I want to bring out there because everybody should be able to utilize their gifts and abilities, in terms of reading energy and all that stuff. Then,
Yeah.
if anything, I've cast a net not big enough, if anything. So it's like
Right.
it's better to have that perspective because it's always that idea like you could think really big or really small, right? It's the old axiom. You're going to think something. You may as well think on the bigger side and always the evolved perspective rather than
Yeah.
like let's squeeze it down to what I can barely imagine myself doing. Like yeah, then you'll be broke forever. You'll never make the impact you like. You're going to feel empty or whatever, something not good inside.
Mm-hmm.
But if you just like, I mean, one of the things, and I love that we jump around in our conversation, we're similar that way. But like this podcast, the reason why I do it is not like it hits every business metrics perfectly, neatly, and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
It's not about that for me. It's because I absolutely love and adore doing the podcast, and it does bring results in business.
Right.
At the same time, if it didn't do both, I wouldn't do it because it just wouldn't feel soul satisfying. But it does do
Hmm.
both. But it doesn't have to max out on both ends for me necessarily. It's just got to
Yeah.
feel exactly right, and that I love it. That's all, and that it does produce. So
Yeah.
as long as it has that, and it's enough for me. And then I just keep imagining, okay, what other new words or spells do I want to cast with my words on that? And maybe I need, like, I'm considering launching, I mean, I may not, but I'm really considering launching a rebrand on Spiritual Rockstar, like just
Yeah.
like a new angle to
Yeah.
Spiritual Rockstar, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm really strongly considering that. So I'll be casting a new spell for that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a bunch of witches here. I mean, they just get say spells. We just got out of that whole thing because whatever, setting intention, call it whatever you want. It's all to me the same thing. But
Yeah. All of it.
um, yeah,
Hmm.
so yeah, I mean, this is what's so critical, and then I'm gonna have to come up with new language, right? And I have to come up with those words, and I'll use my team, my inner team, but also people I know in marketing and whatnot. I'll probably reach out to them. Probably be working with them and getting
Yeah.
support, and
Yeah.
everybody that grows has support. So it's
Hmm.
an undeniable fact, and
Hmm.
you'll get better results, if you get the right support. So with all that being said, Mary, I'm wondering, how do you help with words? We've talked about so many amazing things, but I do want to really nail that a little bit more. Like, how do you help people with words, and what should be people thinking about when they're using their words, to build their business?
Yeah, I like to do it through two avenues. One is by observing. So I always really encourage people to get out of their bubble and not check out. They might get people and they're like, I'm gonna unsubscribe from everything. I can't handle it. And I'm like, no, you need to subscribe to like everything. And then you have systems to help you manage the inflow of that data so you can engage with it on your terms. It's not just coming at you like a tidal wave. And so there are ways to do that. And I always encourage people to find at least 3 to 5 to start, especially if you can't call the names up instantly, but 3 to 5 people who are doing things outside of your discipline. So let's say you're a tarot reader. Instead of following 3 to 5 other tarot readers, and don't also follow the astrologers, find somebody doing something totally different, like underwater basket weaving. I don't care what they do. Like it's got to be totally different. And subscribe to their work, whether you follow them on, say, Instagram, or you subscribe to the email newsletter, or maybe multiple ways, and watch what they do over a period of time and just gently engage with the material. Just watch, hear the words, listen, and look at it, and pay attention. It's going to give you fresh inspiration for one thing, but it's also going to show you a lot of similarities across any type of industry or discipline. And then it's also going to show you where people are doing things differently that you might be able to bring to your industry as a reader, and do something that kind of makes you pop a little bit more compared to your competitors. And it might be the way that somebody shows up and talks, and you're like, wow, I really love the way she always goes live. It's like she's clearly got her like set up, but at the same time, it's not overdone. And it's like, how would I do that? It's different than the other people in the tarot community that I see, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
And so that's the first avenue, is like getting out of your bubble and like really looking at what other people do. And then from there, when you start finding people who are doing interesting things, you can start to reverse engineer, like, you know, okay, if she's sending weekly emails, like, what would I need to do in order to do that? And it's like, okay, where do I start? There are certain things that I always recommend to people when they are using their words. You've just got to publish. That's first and foremost. And a lot of people will kind of dog on themselves at first because they usually start out with a pretty small audience, not always, but usually. And they're like, well, nobody's listening. I'm like, that's the perfect time. That is exactly when you want to start practicing sending weekly emails and finding your voice and getting comfortable with the idea that you're going to put something and commit to it into the body of that email and hit send. And to start developing your systems of production. It's like, do you send on the same day and time every week? Does that feel good to you? Or do you like to sort of do it a little bit more organically, but no matter what, you're hitting it consistently and you're building up that body of work over time, which most people are not going to see the early days of. And that is a good thing because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to do something and be like, I can't believe I did that. Thank God nobody was watching. and then you'll find new ways of communicating and participating in communication with other people. And eventually, you'll go from friends and family or like your most loyal customers up to that date, and you'll start getting more people and you'll start getting these super fans who show up. And there's this concept called the 1000 true fans, and the idea is that 1000 true fans who buy from you regularly is all you need for a sustainable business. And when you do the math, it is true. And so you're really looking for that concept and to grow into that, and then from there you can expand, and it gives you a chance to, instead of just sort of reacting into the world like, oh my gosh, everybody's on TikTok. And it's like, do you need to be on TikTok? Maybe you don't. And because you're like, I feel so overwhelmed. That's what I always hear. Like, oh my gosh, I need to be on TikTok, but I'm so overwhelmed. I'm like, you don't have to be on there. I personally would argue, just from a straight up business strategy standpoint, because you always own your email list, email should be your top number one thing that you nurture. Absolutely, no matter what. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everything else after that is gravy. And but if you can master your email list in the year of 2025 coming up, you are going to be so far ahead of like 99% of the other people around you. And it's going to have a big payoff in the end, because our social platforms are already going through shifts and changes like right now while we're talking. And you just can't bank on them being what you need them to be. And if you don't have your followers on there in a place where you can reach them yourself later, you're going to have a really big problem. So getting them into an email list is worth it. It's worth the work.
Yeah, totally. Man, we could have a whole nother episode just talking about emails and email lists and sending and
Yeah.
titles and oh my God, just
All the things.
metrics and oh my God, there's all kinds of things to get into there. We could do a whole podcast series on that. But so I know you have an amazing, you know, community of people that follow you, through emails yourself. And you also have something that's somewhat unique. I mean, that you have a paid, email list as well. People that are paying to get a newsletter, paying to get, your in-depth readings you do and whatnot. Can you go ahead and share with the audience, seeing as we're running out of time a little bit here today? Can you share with them a little bit about where they can learn more about that and take advantage of at least the free one, and then tell them about your paid newsletter as well?
Yeah. So every week I send a newsletter. I like to think of it kind of like a e-magazine. I call it the Merry Mag, Merry, because I have a really good friend. And she's like, you're Mary, like you're happy Mary, Merry, Mary. And so I named it after that. And I hit sort of like really interesting things that I can find every week. I do a free reading that goes out to the community every week on Saturday. I publish without fail for, I don't know how many years it's been. It's been like 4 years now. Without fail, Saturday mornings at 7:25 in the morning Pacific time, that newsletter goes out. And people are always like, why'd you pick 7:25? I'm like, because I was born on July the 25th. It's easy for me to like anchor in on it. And so that email goes out every Saturday. People can subscribe at sensiblewoo.com/subscribe. And I see people mostly stay. There will always be like a couple people who will unsubscribe, but my unsubscribes are very small. And I really feel like it's because I show up and listen to them. The readings are not social media readings. They are sort of in this like private protected space. I do it really simply. I record them every week using Loom. And so they are in this private space. People can leave comments. Sometimes they'll hit reply on the email and tell me about things too. So I hear from them that way. And sometimes they'll ask me questions that become the basis of like, let's anchor in that on next week's readings. And right now, because we're at the end of the year, I channel like a quarterly forecast for the coming year. So the readings are exclusively for business. We don't do relationships. We don't talk about love readings or Money sometimes comes into play because it's part of business, but it's not the focal point. It's really about, the energetics of business. And then on Sundays, there is a paid newsletter list. And those folks, the current rate is $19 a month. So they get an email newsletter every single Sunday just for them. That's called the Woo Crew. And so that free reading that happens on Saturday, sort of like the base foundation reading. So they get a whole extra reading on top of that to go more in depth. There's more cards that I pull for that. And then we do pillars. Right now we're doing earth, air, fire, water. So we're talking about your body, your voice, your energy, your nervous system. And it gives them a way to sort of tap in as functioning as a CEO, as a system. Like, what do I need to kind of tap into in the energies of the season? And the comments that people leave are just so beautiful. I think a lot of times people feel very affirmed. They find words for things that they're having trouble finding words for, which then helps them communicate with their audiences, take action where maybe they were feeling stuck. And it's become this really beautiful space. We're also dropping like little mini astrology lessons, in the newsletter in Sundays, so that people can start learning how to like read their charts, understand their human design a little bit better. So it's sort of like a mishmash of modalities just to be curious and investigate. We talk a lot about numerology in there because I love numbers, but it's really anchored on tarot and Akashic records. And it's just me channeling and leaving them readings. I think like, so Sunday people, it's probably like anywhere from 60 to 90 minutes of readings every week. And they can engage with the long ones or the short ones. Sometimes I see people go for one or the other, depending on how busy their lives are at any point. But yeah, on the Saturday newsletter, we have a lot of fun. I have a YouTube channel like you do. And so, whenever I have new content, I put that in that newsletter. I'll celebrate my friends. Like when this podcast comes out, everybody will hear about it. If there's some interesting news in the landscape, I'll make sure that I put those relevant articles so that they don't have to dig for that information. If there's important announcements, like about events that I'm running or something, they'll get those there too. But it's really meant to be fun and informative and just not so stuffy. and I don't lean in too hard into like long thought leadership pieces. But really to like have fun with media and show them consistently, like it's done every single week. And I've heard from so many people, they'll tell me, even if I don't open the email every week, they're like, just knowing that you're in my inbox is such a huge comfort. And those people have become some of my best clients over the years. And so
I don't even
sometimes,
read it, but I just like that I'm getting it.
right.
Yeah.
And I think like that is such an important thing to note, that your presence showing up is what your audience is looking for. And so
Right, I
it's
agree
not
with that.
always about your open rate.
Yeah, I don't even know that, half my clients even like my emails, but they're still love me.
We all have that worry, Danielle. We all have that worry.
I mean, but yeah, I mean that the presence, I think, is what I'm trying to say by that. It's like they still feel my presence no matter what the hell I'm saying. The people that are my true tribe,
Yeah.
they're like, okay, it's kind of a weird email, like,
Yeah.
but they wouldn't care because at one level, because they're like, yeah, but I love Daniel or whatever, and those people that aren't my tribe, they're gonna be like, yeah, what a crappy email, I'm getting out of here. Like, that's fine. So in
Yeah.
my book, but yeah, that's fantastic. We'll put in the links below for everything, so you guys can check it out if you want to, or take advantage of it if you want to, and get the gift of Mary, I want to say.
Thanks.
So yeah, you may as well receive, right? So yeah, Mary. A couple of quick things, quick intuitive downloads. We're going to do in a very abbreviated energy scan segment today, just due to time issues today. But yeah, so what I wanted to, if it's okay for me to share, are you ready for me to share? Okay. So I was tuning in a little bit while you were talking, some things I wanted to share. But what I loved in this episode too, like you have this passion, obviously you're advocate, for the disenfranchised. That could be not only women but other disenfranchised people or groups or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Disenfranchised. And so I really appreciate that about you, and I feel the roar behind it, right? So thank you for that. And then I also feel Yeah, because I feel like the sense of imprisonment that you've experienced, and your lineage have experienced as well. And it's like I see like women talking like, um, listen, we're a lot more capable than those guys think, and we'll show them. And like this thing, like something like that. I may not have it exactly right, but along those lines, I hear their voices, and so it's cool because you are helping to shift it. You're helping to shift and transmute those energies. So I see that with you. And yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it is a funny voice, so it's kind of distracting me. But um so yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, I think that, yeah, there's probably a lot of laughter that's happened through the lineage too, because I think they're saying those things, but they're kind of having fun with it too.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what else is coming up? Yeah, I mean, I just feel like you've got a lot of being able to tap into a deep space of the of mystery and actually like a empty, the empty space, the void, and like you can really like immerse yourself and be invisible to other people at times, and just like you're gathering, gathering. Now it's time for Mary to speak, and like boom, and I see, and then you could do all kinds of magic for people. I've been calling them spells, but yeah, that kind of stuff. For the good, obviously, you're the good one. So all good. So yeah, those are some things. Actually, I'm sharing more in this reading than I normally do by just riffing real quick. So Mary, any yeah, thoughts about what came through briefly?
Yeah, I super appreciate it. It was really affirming. I love when you said the roar behind because I'm a Leo stellium. So I'm always joking
Ah.
that I'm like, a cat stuck in a human's body where I'm just like, roar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm a Leo
yeah. The
myself too.
the marginalized communities is big. It's a really big part of my
Yeah.
brand. I obviously have serviced a lot of women, a lot of the LGBT crowd,
Mhm.
and like the less enfranchised voices in our business communities, people of color. But the really interesting thing that I have noticed in, like, I don't know, the second half of this year, part of it was metrics, like actual metrics data, and I saw how much more diverse my audience actually was. And I really feel like we are all like starting to come together. Those of us who like share the same psychographics, and we're coming together and really wanted to support each other. I have a lot more men in my audience that I previously realized, and they've just been like quietly hanging out in the wings and like
Sleeper cells.
yeah, and so like it's been kind of like a beautiful thing to witness there. I think a lot of us feel like we haven't had as big a voice in a very noisy world, and people are looking for it. And I don't know what gives me the right or the gifts to be so loud all sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. The void is very true. I'll sit in a very deep space, in uncomfortable spaces for a long time, and pull information together. And it's like I'm happy to bring that gift to other people who don't have the capacity for it, or they just don't have the skills for it. It's like, no, I mean, that's why we all have community. I need other people who have other gifts like yours,
Right.
like that's why we know each other. And
Mhm.
yeah, so I think it's really beautiful. Thank you.
Sure thing, my pleasure. Yeah, I love it. I love the energy you have. It's awesome. So, what I want to share with everybody is that if you want to, experience some of this magic of me tuning in, you can always check that out at yoursacredpurpose.com. I have a Rock Your Sacred Purpose energy scan consultation, read through your energies, your chakras, and then bring it into, yes, of course, I'm with the practical. So, practically, how can we put that into use and your business and or your life, though I focus on business. And then so you can check that out there. And then also there's the free meditate make money meditation right at my website that helps open up your energy, helps you get aligned with the money energy, and gets you your downloads from your guides or angels, what have you. Get guidance, the money energy turns on, and rather than belief and all the other stuff, like it just starts to flow through you and you get inspired to move into new action as well. So check that out at yoursacredpurpose.com and take advantage of the free Meditate and Make Money meditation. Okay, so Mary, any last words of wisdom for the audience today?
I don't know. You and I would end up talking for like 4 hours. We would turn into a Joe Rogan podcast. So
Yes.
I don't think we want to
Totally.
do that today.
Totally,
No, I'm so
totally.
glad that we connected this year. I think it was just so serendipitous, and I know that we'll have many more conversations. You're going to come over into my world too, so I'm excited to do that with you. So thank
Oh,
you for having me.
likewise.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. I'm very grateful as well, and I'm really looking forward to being on your platform, etc. So, thank you for being on the show, Mary, and thank you for who you are and what you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel.
And thanks to our audience. Keep on tuning in. We'll keep on rocking it here at Spiritual Rockstar Podcast. Till next time. For listening to Spiritual Rockstar Podcast, stay tuned for our next upcoming new episodes each Saturday. Please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review to help us to serve you best. As a reminder, you can get your free Meditate and Make Money meditation at www.yoursacredpurpose.com to rock your sacred purpose. Goodbye for now, everybody.